Alright, let's try this again. As soon as my thing catches up. There we go. Now we're back. Okay. So anyway, back to what we're doing. You're gonna find out there's a lot of room inside this radio. The nice part about when you're gutting them is that there really is no worrying about fixing this. Well, on this one we got to do some body work, but there is no worrying about fixing this and fixing that. There we go. Now once you got all those out, this dude right here should pop loose for you. Should I say? Hold on. It's because this one's been dropped. That's why I'm glad when they just say gut them. Something up here. These guys should be coming off. This case is actually wrapped around the whole side of the radio. Oh, I know what's going on. Do not forget to take out the screws in the front, boys and girls. Dummy. Let me get that. When you're taking these guys out, you want to inspect them because you're going to put them back in. Okay? These are the ones you see on the front. Don't lose any of the keepers. See how these have gotten a little bit rusted? We're going to clean those up. You'll notice that once we start pulling knobs off, they're actually going to go into what I call the bath. They're going to go into the bath water. Man, that was really stuck. It'll still kill you. Deal with you later. So I would much rather do what this gentleman's doing by tearing it down, putting the radio that you like in it, because it is an impressive looking case. But even at the time, excuse me, it was a failure as a radio. Most guys that get a DAK get them to look at them. Unless you run into a clown like me. And then we put new chassis on. So this has got some strip screws, obviously. There we go. Now, you will see two different styles of this radio. There's one where this final section right here only has two little bitty tubes. I forget what their numbers are. This guy, might as well autopsy it before you rip its guts out. This guy had some channels in it, obviously. Now, when we're done, this speaker is going to be moved back here because he's going to have his tube right here, and there'll be a small high voltage section. Now, what we're going to do for this one that we did not do for the last one, these tubes, I think I got one handy. These tubes that we put in these radios is the same tube that you would have in like a Firebird 500 or something. Old sweep tube. We're using, this one's actually a 6LR6. We use 6LQ6s. And they have a different footprint down here, but they look identical. So in the end, he's going to have one of these guys standing right here for his final instead of these audio tubes, which is actually what they are. Here is where his 6LQ6 will be. He'll be able to turn the filament off and on, standby off and on the front of the radio when we're done. So that's where we're headed. So when you rip these things apart, guys, you ain't got to be crazy, okay? We're not going to save a lot of what's in here, that's true. But the first thing when I do a DAK, first thing I do is cut the cord off. Because we're going to put a 3-wire cord on here. So this isn't even going to be functional because the power supply requires a like a 16 or 14 gauge 3-wire cord. So we use this on something else. Like Sanford and Son, we don't waste nothing. Alright, that's out of here. In the box. So somebody's added these switches. I'm not going to mess with it yet because I'm not pulling that part out. I'm going to start with the front, okay? When you're doing this radio, you want to be careful not to tear these meters and shit up. Anybody who's seen one of these when I'm done with them, see how these meters lit up, and you know immediately why you don't want to tear them up. And another thing we do immediately, I should have done it already, is we pull all these off, and then these, let me pull them all off, go into our sauna. Oh, what happened to my thing? There we go. These go into our sauna for knobs. Basically soak them in just warm water. And we're going to let them sit in there. Ooh, we got a stubborn one. You can fight, but you'll lose. There we go. Probably been on there for 40 years. So, there. We're going to reuse all these knobs. So now they're in the bath water. They're going to sit in there for a duration. And when I go to pull them out of there, that'll be some funky water. So, demolition, first things first, to get rid of the glass. Let's pull tubes. Put them in a box. And then we're going to go to the face. So, a million tools and no way to get to nothing. It's going to require. Alright, so the first thing that comes off, are the handles on the front. Okay? Up here. These guys. These are just screwed to the back with a couple of Phillips screws. Now they go through the faceplate and through the sub chassis, and they kind of sandwich the faceplate in between all that. And once again, if you notice, I don't know if you noticed, at the bottom of these, you see these little grommets? If you're going to do one of these radios like we're doing this one, don't lose those little trinkets. Guys who know these radios, that's the exact kind of stuff they look for. I was going to say something else. It's the kind of poo-poo they look for. And when you do your handles, pull these screws, set them aside, get your handles off, and thread these screws back into the handles. Because they're long, they're made for these guys. I'm losing my headset. And here's our grommet. They're made for these handles. I have never had to redo a set of handles. These are like chrome brass, I'm guessing. I don't think they're steel, but they use a lot of brass when this thing was made. Now you're going to notice as I'm getting this handle off, face is getting a little weeble wobble, but we won't fall down going on there. So what we want to do is make sure we get our hardware. I'm going to screw these back to the handle with the screws. And we're going to put these in the box this way. So when we reassemble the face, we've got all the grommets. And all these are going to have to be cleaned, probably with a brush or a Dremel cleaning tool of some kind. We'll clean them up so they're nice and bright. So here's one side in our box. So then we're going to do the other side. I got to get this camera where you see everything. We're going to do the other side. The reason I do the face first is we're going to flip this radio around 500 times during the process of this reconstruction. So the less trauma I can cause the faceplate of this unit, happier I'm going to be. And definitely the happier my customer is going to be. He wants it to look as original as possible. He doesn't want it to look like a brand new radio. You know, he wants it to look like, you know, it is as old as it is, but it freaking rocks and kicks ass. And that's what we're going to make it do. Due to rules and regulations, use of power on the 11-meter band was prohibited by the FCC. So they couldn't build this radio with anything at the time much bigger than what they did. When we go through and we rebuild them the way they should have been built to begin with. The last one was beautiful. The gentleman that we're doing this for found his way to our website, and he shouldn't have done that. He ended up calling me. He saw we did a DAC with a board. Was one of our homemade, not homemade, was one of our in-house made Super Duty units. Single 2290 module. And then he went to the website and saw our DAK IX that we put the tube in, and asked, not can you fix mine, but can you just do that to mine? Or just do that to mine. Just do that and be done with it. Now you notice your face comes loose now. Now your face is loose, okay? Now we can do some maneuvering. And when you take these apart, dig this. I don't know if you can see the rust, the bottom of the screw. You want to clean all that goobage out of there, because you just slap it back together. Oh, well, it's on the end of the screw. You'll never see it. Doesn't matter. It's going to keep growing. Clean all this hardware thoroughly when you go to reassemble the unit. Everything you're doing at this point, in most people's mind, it's rip it apart. No, it's rip it apart and preserve what you got to put back. You know, these meters, I can't just run down to the DAC store and get another meter for one of the, you know, if somebody breaks a meter, Jeff or somebody breaks a meter on the front of one of these radios. So, you know, we're very careful with those as I throw the handle into the bunch over there. So now, our face is loose. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath. We're not saving nothing, so it don't matter. And we're going to start removing feeds. Anything that feeds back to the board, we're cutting off. Don't care where, as long as we get it out. What the main focus at this point is to maintain the integrity of the face of the radio, and try, in your travels, save yourself and the customer some money, to reuse some of these controls. Now, I haven't had his superstar part yet, so look at that, his channel selector. I didn't even unscrew it yet. The channel selector's coming off. Wow. Okay, we'll get that out in a minute. You got to go through every control and verify the value of the potentiometer. You don't take a 20K potentiometer and put it in a circuit that requires a 5K. You're going to find out that it's very finicky. Beyond finicky. It's going to piss you off. Okay. So there's our little bitty feeds from the bottom. I'm not really worried about that hardware. We're not putting it back on. So, and now we got little leashes here and there that we got to cut. I call them leashes. Not leeches. Leashes. Nick's still watching. I know that's what he's thinking. Alright, so now we're all loose on the bottom. Now we take this guy. We flip him over. Now we got a really loose face. but we still got to go inside to cut all this stuff. So, let's see if I can give you a shot of that. What we're going to do is, yeah, I can't really see. I'm going to go and basically, this harness, this main harness, I'm going to cut all this harness and whatnot loose from the front. Now this is all the meter feeds, switch feeds. That's another thing, these switches. You always want to try to reuse these original bat switches if you can. They don't make them that look quite like these anymore. And the ones that are in here are pretty freaking heavy duty. There's really not too much you can't use them for. All we're doing right now is freeing up every every bit of leash that we can. And like I said, if you look real close, you notice it's a mobile and a base case. That's all any base station is. I don't build these chassis, obviously. We build radios. A lot of guys build cars. If some guys don't build the motors, they buy a motor. Some stuff I buy, a lot of stuff I make. Alright, we're starting to come loose here. And this is where it gets a little sketchy. I thought I cut those already. And there it is, boys and girls. Now you got your face off. That's huge, because now we can do our work on the back of this unit. We're going to try to save as many of these controls as we can. This is the channel selector display that's coming out. And what we're going to end up doing is taking that 3900 display and channel selector. We'll mount that selector in here, but I'll have to make a wire harness like this and extend the little display up far enough where the channel selector can live here and we can put the digits in here. But all of the meters are here, all the hardware is still here. That's the first thing you do when you're going to do this. Get that off. So now we've got our face off. It's off, it's intact, it's safe, because the meters are integral. Now you can get nutso with it. This is the front without a face. When we do the conversion, what's going to happen is, at least it has on almost every one so far, we're going to have to take our Dremel, we're going to cut some of this hard steel out of here to make room for the channel selector PC board. Now, it's really kind of a free-for-all how you want to do it at this point. I get all the wires out. All the wires that I can, just cut all the damn harnesses out. We're not trying to save nothing. It's not like we're going to sell these parts to somebody. We are just vamping right now. So. And I love the way it tied wires and stuff together back then. Beer and pizza engineering. That's what we called it in school. So we're freeing up our harnesses is what we're doing now. Getting them all out of the way. Cutting anything that's going to hold anything down to flip out of the way. There are some guys out there who've got one of these radios that works really good, watching this going, oh my god. I say to that, watch. Click. Take it out of there for you. When this thing's done, it's going to smack any other DAK right in the freaking head. Now, what I started to say before, the last one we built, the tube that we're putting in this unit, if you know anything about tubes, they require a high voltage to run. It's called plate voltage. And generally on the tube that we're using, most guys will run at 800-900 volts. Now when we built the last DAK, I didn't want the owner, whoever it may end up being, to have to worry about staying on the key. or hurting the tube. So we only set his plate voltage at like 690 volts. Now that's pretty low. That made that 6LQ6 PEP swing about 100, 105 watts, which isn't bad. And the gentleman that owns it says it's a DX an animal, and I believe him. First time we keyed that thing down on, not on a dummy load, but on the antenna, I talked to Oklahoma City from Chicago, so pretty sure that one was good. All right, so you see we're clearing the field, basically. You can't even start thinking about where you're going to place stuff until you get all this garbage out of here. So, you know, anything with a wire on it, it's cut out. Now, once we get this part empty, we're going to get his radio chassis, and we're going to do what's called mock up the layout of how we're going to do his radio. His radio is the one we're using for this unit, has a little bit larger footprint than the unit we put in the last one. So I have to be mindful of that. And once again, mindful that this one's going to be volted a little harder. So I don't want any squeals. And when you set radios next to tubes, it's really hard to make them not squeal, as most guys will tell you. We manage to pull it off most of the time. Sometimes it's hard to do. Anybody knows anything about tubes will tell you. Freaking mind of their own. Okay, so I'm getting everything I can loose from this chassis. I'm getting ready to pull this main board out, is what I'm getting ready to do. But I want to get all these leashes, is what I call them. Anything that can tie anything down comes out, goes in the box. Alright, that looks pretty clear. Right, so now we're going to start pulling some stuff out. These assembly rails, they use these a lot in that time. I use them a lot now. There will be a couple of those in here, although we have gone to blank PC boards now, and we'll just put a PC board together, which is how this one's high voltage circuit is going to be made. It'll have the caps and the diodes all in one nice little circuit board. Everything you take out for the radio goes in the box. Basically, we're clearing the field. There is no guesswork. There is no guesswork in this format. It's just getting redone. No, it says end live video. Check it. Oh no, it says I'm on. Alright, so my wife's like, I don't think you're live. For all three people who are watching. Alright, so now we're going to pull this old main chassis out. Got this assembly rail out. And once again, even though we're not putting these rails back in, we want to save the screws. They're all unique to the unit. So clear the field. Rarely can you reuse one. Let's see here. Go ahead and pull a transformer out. Really need to put my glasses on. Now, when we're done with this, it's going to look a lot different inside. When we put that chassis in here, we're not just going to, throw the radio in here and extend a couple control. All the controls get extended out to the face of this radio, so that everything is, you know, we're not relabeling the front of this radio is the bottom line there. So what we're going to do is every function on the mobile that's going in, we will take that function and try to place it in the face of this one in its appropriate spot, so we don't have to worry about, you know, relabel and all that mess. Besides, once again, he wants it to look as pure as possible. So as I take a drink of my orange cream soda. Alright, chassis time. Main chassis time. Here's all the shit falling out. Now there's going to be some more gooba up top. I'll cut these out. I'm going to cut this channel kit out. Anything that could tie you down to something else, cut it out. Walk out of the way. Okay. Now, one thing I want you to notice when I pull this chassis out, it's got these cool little L brackets that they made for putting this radio in this chassis. We are going to reuse those to mount the new chassis in the unit. We're going to use the same brackets that they made for this one. Ooh, I lost my screwdriver. And I missed the ground to cut off. When you're cutting through this stuff, make sure you get everything. A little freaking thread will drive you up a wall. There. Now we can get to out. Oh, these two are stone on the back, which means guess what? It's time to remove this back panel. It's all J-whoppered anyway. Okay. This radio is a lot like an erector set. Okay. As you're taking it apart, you'll notice that it's compartmental. Here's the back panel. And what we're going to do is, and remember he's got some body damage. You see. There you go. Got some body damage here. But what we're going to do is, we take these screws out right here. And that's what's going to, this being able to remove this panel is also what's going to enable me to body work it and straighten it out so that when we put the radio back together, it's actually a square again. So there, now that's out of the way. Whole back panel just boop, gone. So what looked like a big complicated radio as you watch it come apart, it's not that complicated. It's not all that entailed. It was a cool idea 40 years ago. And we're doing the same thing. We're putting a solid state chassis in with a tube type vinyl. I'm missing a screw. Question is where am I? Nope. There we go. And once again, get all your leashes out. One DAK X AM chassis. Looks strangely like a mobile without a front on it. Okay. So now that's out of there. So now all the rest of the stuff's gotta go. Let me find some glasses because I'm blind as a bat. Here we go. So now we've got some debris. I call it debris now because it ain't doing nothing anymore. We don't save none of this. Well, here, we don't. Through that screw. We don't reuse none of this. It all comes out and goes in the bucket. When we're done, basically, what you're going to have is that face panel with all the meters on it. all the controls from a 3300 reconfigured and put through the face of this radio. That chassis mounted in here with a 30 amp power supply and a big old donut. That's going to be our high voltage transformer. And a tube. Big tube. That's how we roll around here. Okay. But one thing on this radio that's kind of a pain in the butt. Let's just say butt. If you look down in here, I don't know if you can see it. Right here in the bottom, not only did they screw this chamber down, but they soldered it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our trusty kick-ass hot air unit out. Run it up to 900 degrees. We're going to heat those before we try to take them out. In the meantime, pull screws for the switching board. Now this is the final output and relay switching. This radio received without a mic, and that's because of this relay right here. Okay, we're up to 10. So when you've got a deal like this guy, you need one of these. So we're going to heat this dude up, and then we'll take it out. Might use the iron too. This is pretty thick steel. It's not just easily going to bend to your whim and do what you want it to. And I'm quite sure they did this because of static. They didn't want any noise getting into the final tune chamber for the tubes. Let's see if it'll let me get the screw out. Alright, let me get the screw out. But it's still soldered down. So, keep some heat on that. My iron's heating up. I think we can get this one out too. Yep. Alright. So, this is where originally the coax connector went on. This was your output jack. The SO239 connector. It is probably not going to be here when we're done. I will probably be moving that. I think we moved the last one closer to the tube. There we go. Almost. Alright, we'll let that sit there for a minute. The other side's holding it too. There she goes. Oh, I see. They got a little deal going on up here too on this one. Let's see if we can unscrew that part. Alright, well those are loose. Let's kill our air gun. But I just noticed that this one's actually welded to the shield for the final tubes, which is kind of weird. So I want to see if this is screwed down anywhere first. If they're not, I'm just going to pull this shield out of here. It's got to come out anyway. But what they did was they dumped, instead of on this one, this radio actually had a final transistor in the chassis for the radio part. The DAK X does not. They don't even have finals on that chassis. The coaxes go right to the board where the finals would be. And that's how a DAK X is set up. Alright, let's see. A whole lot of shaking going on. That's loose. Dude, oh, you're double soldered, man. Oh, they tricked me. Okay. Oh, that's gonna blow because that's soldered down too. Okay. Well, you know what? That panel's gotta come out. Which means dude gets heated back up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull. Oh wow. Sorry guys. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull the center section. The center section is connected in both of these sides. What we're trying to do is get all these chambers out of the way. I didn't see the light was in the way of the camera. See if we can straighten it out. Hopefully it'll straighten out. That looks awful fuzzy. Oh, that's better than that. There we go. That's sharp enough. So anyway, what we're doing is we're getting rid of this part next because it's soldered here and it's soldered here. So I can't finish cracking this guy loose. There's still 2 screws in here. That's not the problem. The problem is everything's welded down and welded to each other. I got no room for play. So we're going to remove that, but we're going to take as many of the screws out as possible before I want as much of this to come out as possible in one shot. Not because I'm trying to save it, just because it would be easier rather than getting one, getting another, getting one, getting another. Alright, so what we're going to do for this annoying little son of a buck is we're going to heat the bejesus out of it first with the hot air. Then we'll lay the iron on it and hopefully that'll get hot enough that we can pull it off. Never seen one soldered like this. One side. Bye bye. Now. Knock out this other side. Some leash on dude here. When you're using hot air, you really want to be pointing the air like directly at whatever it is you're trying to smelt. What I'm doing is using a combination of hot air and the iron. Got a freaking screw in there. There it goes. Bye bye. Alright, there's that section gone. Whenever you use hot air, whenever you shut it off, be sure to point it at something that is, it takes some freaking heat while it cools down. Alright, so we got the center section out now. That's gone. That's the bridge between these two guys. And now they're freaking hot. So now, and I still need that. I don't know why I'm shutting it off. So now we're going to get this chamber out. First, I'll bet there's a solder on the other side. Yep. God love them, they soldered everything to death back then. There we go. Almost there. Actually, I can cut that out. I'm sure what's there for. There, there's that. Right for you. There. Now we got that switching board out in the bucket. Now we can get these little guys loose. Now we're talking business. And Nick, stop looking at my ankles. I just saw your comment. You fucking freak. Alright, come on. There she goes. Bye-bye. Alright, we got that chamber out. One to go. We'll collect. Ow! Hot, 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 dummy. Hey, dummy. Those are hot. Collect all your screws as you're going, or all your components in the box. Don't break the tubes while you're doing it. That is one thing that we don't just smash when we're tearing apart one of these radios. We try to keep, like, you know, any tubes or anything like that. Some guys kill for some of these parts. So as the parts come out, you see how much room we're gaining, little at a time. And we got another semi-rail. There's going to be a million of these. So, after being through one or two of these, when I'm at this point, I'm thinking in my mind, all right, where am I going to lay my chassis? Chassis still going to have its case on it, so, you know, it's got to be on a flat surface. I need to solder that into this chassis. So I can tell you already what's going to end up happening is we're going to end up sawing this section off, flatten this section out. We're going to go through and we're going to hammer down anything sticking up, any screws. Well, these are going anyway because this SWR bridge underneath is coming out. But what we're going to do is I'm thinking what we're going to do is put the radio for this one. I think it's just going to go dead in this spot. It's going to give us room to maybe mount the donut on the back for the high voltage. I don't know yet. We'll figure that out. But we'll figure it out. No two are identical. No two of these rigs. Right, we're going to flip this thing around. Back to our hot air and our solder. That's gone. Fill this up. One more. That one's going to be a bear. All extra parts in the bucket. So what they've done is around the edges of these metal canisters, they soldered them down to the chassis. So they're well grounded, and that's fine. But I don't know, maybe nobody's imagined that the radios were junk and all gonna get gutted one day. This guy should be coming out of there. Bye bye. Okay. Now we shut our air off. Bucket. So now we're gonna drop the SWR bridge out. This originally was the section that handled all the meters. Modulation, SWR, all that nonsense went through this board. He's still going to have all those functions, but, you know, like a regular base station, we'll be getting those references from the main radio chassis. Here is a DAK IX SWR bridge. You can see in and out. And inside you'll see some caps and some controls, some Good source for glass germanium diodes. I don't know if you can see those. Anyway, bye-bye. So, now we're down to transformers, which I hate taking out. Because they're usually bolted from both sides. Let's see if we can get lucky. That wasn't bad. 2 for 2. Hope I'm gonna get to that one. Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem. Gotta use a good old fashioned handle one. If we can find where we dropped it. Always something. Okay, well here in a second we'll get that out of there. Maybe. Possibly. I don't think that's gonna get it, but we'll try it. Oh no shit. There we go. There we go. Oh, but we still got leashes. There's our transformer. One original DAK transformer. Gone. Not using it. In the bucket. This is what happens to your DAK when you bring it to 409 radios. He gets gutted. The only job I know where I get paid to have fun with other people's money. One of these days I'll build my DAK. Maybe. Alright, so we're down to the bare, pretty much the bare raw emptiness chassis. We're going to go ahead and remove the foam because we're not going to use it. Actually, it was on this radio, which I'm surprised. Speaker. Now that we're going to set to the side. We don't want to damage that. We might be reusing that. I don't know how it sounds. I haven't listened to it yet. So now here's our main low voltage power supply board. Giant 12 volt regulator. Giant for the time. They built this big enormous radio and put this little bitty tiny power supply in it. That's it, boys and girls. Now you're down to where you start. This is back at the beginning. So keep an eye on our website. I just wanted to show you guys a deconstruction. You know how you should handle a radio when you're going to go ahead and tear it down and rebuild it or do whatever you're doing. DAKs are fun to do. Because, you know, they've got that big, cool-ass face, and they never worked when they were new, so, you know, now we have technology that works, and some guys that are good with wires, even if you don't come to me, find somebody that can do some shit like this, and, you know, you got that paperweight sitting on the shelf, take it in, have it rebuilt. So, let me see, I may set the headset down so I can get his radio. Where they were into that one. 1 second here. Public on hold. So now, this is what we're going to do. I better put my headset back on. This is what he's going to do. This is the radio he's putting in. Here we go. It's a Superstar 3300 HP. Basically, it's a dual final radio. Okay? Should swing 35, 40 watts of PEP. I know I've looked at this one. Don't remember the lid being quite so ratty, but anyway, what's going to happen is we're going to reuse this lid. I'm thinking this radio is probably going to end up living like here. Okay? And then when we actually mount it, it'll get mounted in there like so, but all of these controls all of these controls are going to be matched. Like these double controls, we're going to have to find out the value for each one and then separate them and put them on individual controls and put them in the matching spot on the front of the radio so that we don't have to relabel the radio. So here's this chassis. Okay, so this is what we're throughout. So we will, for the sake of shielding the radio, be reusing the lids. At the end of the day, and I'm not sure where yet, let's just do a dry mock-up here. I'm going to say I put the radio here and it lives here, and then all my controls can come out this way. But then I kind of have a problem. At the end of the day, because we're putting a big-ass tube in here, this transformer's got to live in here somewhere. So I'm thinking what we may do is just like we did on the last one. We're going to move this to the middle so it's shielded. And this donut's going to get mounted all the way over here on this side. Then we'll run our high voltage lines down and around the back underneath to the high voltage board we're going to build and put here to supply the tube. So it looks like the size of this transformer just made that decision for us. This one is going to give us roughly 975 plate volts. For the last one we did was only like 700. But the last one was geared more to running forever. So that's where we're at. We've got it gutted. Now, these panels on the side will come loose, come off, and then this big one on the front comes off, and then all these become individual panels. And at the end of the day, what we will do is break it down that far and clean them, and get all the goopity goop out of them, get all solder, old solder stuff out of them, and get this. Oh, listen to that, it creaks. It's like an old radio should. So there is the bones, the empty bone. I got to take out the rectifiers still. We'll get those. But there's the empty bones. That's how we start. That's the easy and proper way to start a reconstruction on a DAK IX. Now, me being, somewhat trying to keep them true, I say if you've got a 9, when it was born, it was a straight AM radio. It didn't have sideband. I really don't think you should be sticking sideband radios in the DAK IXs. It's just, that's not what they were. If you want to do a sideband radio, get a 10. As then you got a couple extra windows, put a freak display in, all kinds of craziness. We redo this the way the factory did, only with stuff that works and way bigger. From the factory, this radio with a couple of modifications would probably swing 30, maybe 35 watts. When I'm done with this radio, it's going to swing about 125 with the tube on. And the cool thing is he'll have the option to turn it off or on. So, hope you had as much fun as I did. I always love ripping apart old technology. So here we go. I don't know what we're going to name this one, but it's another tube type DAK. Watch the website, and there'll be some slideshows and some short videos. And stay safe. God bless. Take care, everybody.